right here at the jetties, it was it was kind of late in the season, almost time for school, so it had to be just the last part of August or so, just before school started up. And the tower watch was up there from the station, and the tower watch called down the station, and we had just had dinner and had a small crew, and at that time we only had about 20 men at the station, so part of them were gone. So we probably only had 11 people at the station. 2 of them were on watch, and 2 of them were getting ready to go on watch. And they called on and said, there's a small boat, 14-foot or so, and it's drifting down the south jetty and drifting to the breakers at the end of the jetty, and it looks like there's 2 people on board. So we got the call, and I ran down, and at that time we had the 36-footers here, and I jumped in the 36-foot motor lifeboat, and I and 2 crewmen, an engineer and a seaman, and down the jetty we went. Well, it could only do 8-9 knots, and we got over a mile to run, so it takes a while to get down there. And the tower called down and said, the boat is capsized, the boat's capsized off the jetty, and it's drifting to the south. It's about 100 yards south of the jetty right now, still drifting down, and just, it's in the breakers, but the crew are just outside the breakers, and every once in a while a big swell comes around and breaks over them, but the 2 men are hanging on to the boat. So we round the jetty. I got close, and there was a log. In those days there was a lot of drift and logs, and there's this log about 30 foot long or so and about 3 foot in diameter. It was in the surf, tumbling by this capsized boat. And so I go inside the surf so I could turn around and head the boat back out to sea, and the 2 men separated just enough, and the boat has about a 10-foot beam, and these guys were about 10-12 feet apart, so I went right between them, and I put a man on each side of the boat, and I went right between them, and each guy grabbed a guy, and so I left the wheel and went over, because it's really hard to pull somebody on up 3 feet. I grabbed the guy from this side with the seaman, and we pulled him up, and it was a young man, 16, 17 years old. We got him on board. I ran to the other well deck, and I grabbed with the engineer, and I pulled up another 15, 16-year-old boy, and I put him on deck. And my one seaman said, and looked at him, and the guy looked at my seaman. He said, "Oh God," he said, "oh, thank God we're safe now." And we're looking up at it. Here comes a series of breakers, and I can remember the seaman saying this time, he said, "You ain't safe yet, buddy." And I ran back the wheel, got on there, and I cleared the surf. We took 2 or 3 breakers and filled the well decks full of water and swept down. My crew was up forward with the 2 young men and in the well deck, so holding on to them. And we went through the last couple of breakers. We turned the boat around. We came back on the inside. And when we got inside, one of my seamen, his name was Sawyer, he says, "Hi," to the other guy, and I forget his name, we just call him George. He said, "Hi, George." And George says, "Hi." And they were both going with the same girl in high school. And so, George, he says, "You just saved my life." He says, "You can have the girl." And Sawyer says, "Okay." And the 2 young men, they didn't need to go to the hospital or nothing. They were in great shape. They were young and full of spry. And for the next month or so, until school got going, those fellows would come down the station 2 or 3 times a week to thank the crew for saving their lives and that. And Sawyer says, "I got the girl anyway."